Morning, everybody. Uh, Welcome to today's Manage Your Money During Coronavirus webinar. This has been put together in conjunction with the New Orleans Public Libraries and Flight. My name is Alexander Bigby. I am the Executive Director of Flight, a New Orleans-based nonprofit that helps provide free financial educational resources for communities around the city. Please, if you'd like to learn more about us, visit our website at www.flightcoaching.com. Also, you can like us on Facebook. Today's presentation will be about half an hour long, and there'll be a Q&A afterwards. If you have any questions or comments, please write them in the chat box at any time during the presentation, and our presenter will be able to answer those once we're done. If you would like to get a copy of today's presentation, we put them up on our website within 24 hours of each session, and there'll also be a video recording of the session that will be on the website too. I'm going to put the website in the chat box as well, so you can save that for later. So now I'll introduce you to today's speaker, Phoebe Brown. Phoebe has done lots and lots of different webinars and workshops with us, more webinars lately. She's a big friend of Flight, a great speaker, and this is going to be actually, sadly, her last one in the three that she's done. Today, she's going to be talking to us about managing your credit score and credit reports. I'm going to hand it over to her. Phoebe, great to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me, Alex. It's truly a pleasure, and it's been fun. So I'm glad I had the opportunity to do these workshops with you.
Great. I'm going to pull up the presentation and just let me know when you want me to skip to the next slide.
Sure will.
All right.
So thank you, everyone, once again, for those that have been with us on the previous two. And of course, thank you to any newcomers that are present. As Bigby stated, my name is Phoebe Brown, and I'm the Financial Inclusion Officer with Hope Credit Union. And Hope Credit Union is actually located in 5 states. We're located here in Louisiana, but we're also located in Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee, as well as Mississippi. We just recently celebrated our 25th year anniversary. So we've been around a while. So if you want further information about Hope Credit Union, you can always reach out to me, or of course you can reach out to Alex Bigby because he has all the information. At the end of this slide, you will see my contact information. So if you have any questions or need further guidance, you're welcome to reach out to me as well. So let's get started. Let's talk about credit management, how to get on the right track with your credit report, your credit scores, all those things, because I know that this has always been a very scary topic for individuals. But we're going to try to see if we can truck through this and give you some information to take with you and to build off of. Next slide. So to begin, when we talk about credit, I just give you a simple definition here about credit. Credit, of course, is ability to obtain, services. So what credit simply is, and not to really deal with the big fancy definition, but credit looks like and feels like many different things. You have what they call traditional credit, which of course is going to be, like you see in the slide, credit cards or loans. But then you also have non-traditional credit, which would be things like your light bill, your water bill, cell phone bills. Those things don't regularly appear on credit reports, but you are being offered a service that you actually pay later after you use. So that's pretty much what credit is. You're going to pay in the future. So they're giving you the opportunity to utilize something and you're paying it later. So that's credit simply defined. Next slide. So when you look at credit, we actually have to say, well, Why do credit reports and credit scores even matter? Why do we need such a system such as this? Next slide. So when you look at that, you have to define, first of all, what are credit reports? And here I just tell you that a credit report is a consumer report, and it contains your history of how you've actually paid bills or credit, or even things like public record information. You know, it is the house where all of this information is housed for people to actually be able to say, okay, can I really extend this person anything further? You know, how have they paid their bills? Because remember, when somebody's extending you credit, it's a risk. They're taking a risk. So is the risk greater or is it less? So having something like a credit report, it actually helps agencies determine what is the likelihood that you're going to repay what we're going to extend to you. Is that risk going to be greater to where we're not going to receive our payment? Or is it going to be very minimal that more than likely we will receive our payment unless something happens traumatically? Next slide. So why do credit reports and scores matter? Well, number one, credit reports and credit scores matter because it helps you to get and keep a job. Some employers will pull credit, and it's really just to show your credibility. So for example, I work at Hope Credit Union, so we deal with money. If someone is actually in a stressful situation where maybe they're about to lose their home, or maybe their car is about to get repossessed, it makes a person do things that they may have not even thought about doing in the past. So your credibility can be scarred and you might end up dipping into the till. So that's why jobs actually use credit scores to see how responsible the individual is in handling their own business and their own affairs before bringing someone on to actually handle theirs. You will also see the second bullet talks about and keep a security clearance for a job. Yes, in military positions and different positions with companies, you may have to have security clearance to travel or to be obtaining certain information. If you're struggling financially, you could compromise security is. You might sell trade secrets. We've seen it happen before with military and positions. So yes, credit does help you to get and maintain jobs in that area. Also, to be able to rent an apartment or to get coverage. Apartments, if you left a balance at two other apartment complexes, why would some other apartment complex want to take that risk and bring you on when you're showing a pattern of leaving these things behind? Insurance coverage, well, we've all heard of insurance fraud. So when individuals get insurance coverage, your credit is pulled to be able to see if there's any pattern there that might lead to insurance fraud. Like, for example, your car might be about to be repoed. So you have someone to take it away, steal it, and set it afire so you can get an insurance claim. Insurance fraud. And so they want as less risk in that area as possible. Also, credit can help lower deposits on your utilities or cell phones. We've heard in the past, you used to have to come up with $500 or $1,000 just to get a phone with your major players, right? Well, that's because they left a trail of balances or a trail of negative credit history behind them. Yes, credit reports will matter when it comes to credit cards and because we have to show that you have the ability to pay and to pay on time. Next slide. So when you continue to look at credit, the impact of credit can be substantial. Here we just give you a chart where yes, credit help you buy houses, insurance, employment, military, professional credentials was another one that we didn't quite talk about. Yes, credit is pulled for professional licenses, such as becoming a doctor or a lawyer. when individuals are finishing their courses in school, that these things play a role in them getting licensed. Because just think, when you want a doctor really operating on you and they're about to lose their home, their car, their practice, they're stressed out. They're probably not blocking that out. So professional credentials can be in jeopardy. And of course, interest rates. The better your credit is, the better your interest rates will be. The blemishes that you may have, it could cost your interest rates to be higher. So you pay more when your credit is impacted. Next slide. So credit is not a bad thing. In the industry that I'm in, I hear it all the time. I don't want any credit. Credit is a horrible thing. But credit really isn't. Credit was designed for wise uses. It's just the things that we do, we tend to make it bad because of our decision making. So credit allows you to be able to get things and do things that you probably don't have the liquid cash available to do. Like, for example, assets, like buying a home or a car. Emergencies, car breaks down. You don't have the money to actually come up with, so you can use credit in order to get you to the next level so you can continue making money. And of course, convenience. Credit is convenient because right now, pandemic that we're in, and with stores being closed and you can only do a lot of online shopping, or even with the takeout food industry, you might have to order the food online and have it paid for online. Well, you can't pay for it online with cash. You have to use some form of credit. So if you use the credit, it makes it convenient. It's paid for through that credit card and you're paying for it later, but it actually helped you to be able to get what you needed at that moment. Next slide. Also, other wise uses of credit, of course, would be higher education. We know that college is very expensive. So a lot of times you got to get loans in order to do that. That is credit. So it helps you to be able to get to the next level in your life to where you're making the income needed to be able to pay off your bills, as well as, you know, hey, sky's the limit for that career. You can move up the ladder, maybe starting at $30,000, then $40,000, then maybe going to $50,000, $60,000, or $80,000 jobs. But just keep in mind, the decisions you make is what makes it wise. Of course, vacations. A lot of times when we go to take a vacation, we need that credit to travel with and to take care of the hotel, maybe a rental car, as well as whatever we're going to do out there, whatever events or food that we're going to obtain. So credit is wisely used for those types of things. But the flip side of that is you want to be prepared to pay once those bills come in. So wise planning before you take that leap into vacation will be the best thing. Next slide. So there are unwise uses of credit. I've told you some of the wise uses, now the unwise use. Impulse buying. We see it on television, you fall in love with it, you run out, you get it, or you go online, you order it. Impulse buying. I always tell individuals, take the waiting to exhale moment. Think about it, breathe out, and ask yourself some questions before you make that leap. And that will probably lead you to being able to talk yourself out of making that impulse buy. Spending to feel good. Right now, a lot of people may be going through depression and they're online doing a lot of shopping because it makes them feel good. Be very cautious of that, because what you're spending now on credit, you will have to pay later. Spending for status is another thing individuals do that you may not be even aware of, but spending for status, you got that promotion. Everybody on that particular job, they're driving a certain car, wearing certain clothes, and you want to fit in. So you're spending for that status. This is the area where I always tell people, you know, we talk about the Joneses. and we see how the Joneses are living, and we want to be like the Joneses. But the Joneses only show and tell you what they want you to know. They could be slipping into some deep pockets of to repay debt. So stop spending for status. Be you, and know whatever it is that you got it as to who you are and in the way you handle yourself. You don't have to try to spend to get on someone's level. And then everyday living expense. Everyday living expense should be things that are truly budgeted, and you can use the credit to buy the living expense, but you already have the monies that are there to help you to pay the bill off when it comes. So everyday living expense could be a double-edged sword. It could be used because you're not carrying cash, but you already have the cash in your account. But if you're buying living expense because you don't cash, and it's just to be able to take care of your living, then that's a red flag that the credit is being used not wisely, but your situation would have to determine that. Next slide. So now, what on earth is a credit score? Next slide. Credit scores will, most people, they don't quite understand them, but we're going to kind of look at this to help give you a little bit of understanding about a credit score. Next slide. So a credit score is a statistical number. Here I give you a definition saying a credit score is a number that helps a lender predict how likely an individual is going to repay a loan or make credit payments on time. It's a statistical number that tells us the likelihood of your repayment. Once I said in the beginning, will the risk be minimal or will it be a very high risk? That's what a credit score helps determine. We also say that number that it changes. It can change quite often. So that number changes as the elements in the credit report change. So there's things that's going to trigger the score to continually change. If you pulled your credit report today, that credit score is per today. But if you pull it 2 days from today, that credit score could be different. So it does change. A credit score also has broad use and impact. Your credit past, your credit future. So the credit score is determining on a certain period of time and calculating that way. So if you have some past errors that are on the report, the credit score is going to reflect that. Or if you have some past mistakes, the credit report will reflect that. There are different types of scores. Here we tell you that the FICO score, which stands for Fair Isaac and Company or Fair Isaac Corporation, those scores are the most common credit scoring system, and they range from 350 to 850. They're also the Vantage score. First of all, there's over 60 different scoring systems out there. You may have heard of the FICO, but you may have also heard of the Beacon score, the risk score, the Advantage score, the Advantage score or risk score. All of those are different scoring mechanisms. So when you look at a credit report, you really need to know what score you're looking at. The one that most lenders use is going to be the FICO. Now, Vantage Score, it's a newer scoring system, and it was developed by the 3 credit bureaus. Next slide. So here, when we look at this particular report, this particular scoring chart, I give you what's kind of typical in a scoring range to kind of let you know where you are. So you have excellent, that will be anywhere from 850 to 720. Very good is 719 to 680. Good is 679 to 640. Below average is 639 to 600. And needs improvement and poor is anything under 600. Now, it's not to say you can't get credit if you're below 600. It just means that you're going to pay higher risk, your higher interest rates, and you're going to be a higher risk. So with the different scoring systems out there, You will never know how it's calculated. They don't release the calculation, but they will give you this pie chart that actually helps you determine the score, how it's actually fits into a 100% code. So you see there's 35%, 30%, 15%, 10%, and another 10%. So let's look at those slices of the pie. Next slide. So 35% of your credit score is going to be your payment history. If your payment history is not good and you're making late payments, then your score is going to reflect that. Now, let me be clear. One 30-day late payment can drop your score by 100 points. So you want to make sure that you're making on-time payments, that you want to maintain that good profile, because 30% of your score is 35% of your score is going to reflect this. So if you make a late payment, one 30-day late payment, it's going to take over 6 months to a year for that actual score to recover from that negative hit. Next slide. Okay, so 30% is outstanding. So 30% is your actual amount owed. So here is where you will hear a lot of lenders or creditors talk about debt to income ratio. Well, that's how they determine your debt load. But on the credit report, 30% of your score is based on your amount owed. So you have to look at floor to ceiling. That's going to be your credit limits versus your balance. You want to be as far away from the ceiling as possible, which is meaning you're maxed out. So here's what we tell you, that you never want to go over 30% of your credit limit, because it leaves you room for utilization. And when you don't have that utilization available, let's say you have a $1,000 credit limit and you're right at $990, you have no available usage. You become a high risk, so you have more of your income going to try to pay that debt off. So you want to try to be as far away from the ceiling as possible. And you also don't want to be overextended with having too much credit, because that can also cause you to be out of pocket and your score take a drop in this area. Next slide. 15% is the length of your credit history. Now, we don't mean, oh, I have 20 credit cards and 5 loans. What we do mean is, how long have you had credit established? The longer you've had credit established, good credit established, the better off your history is. Teaching a lot of home buyers, first-time home buyers, here is where they make the major mistake. They decide they want to look good to the lender, so they pay everything out and they close all their credit. That causes their score to drop, because now all of this great history you had, and now you've closed it out, there's nothing to calculate off of anymore. So you want to be sure that you have longevity with your creditors. With those credit cards or loan history, you just want to make sure that your on-time payments reflect, and it's over a period of time. So also, accounts that you may not be using quite often, that can have a negative reflect as well, because the creditor can close you. So the key is knowing how to balance in this area. You may have some accounts that you've had 5, 10, 15 years and you don't use them. I suggest that you use them sporadically to show some usage, so you can keep the account open for this purpose of your length of credit history. Next slide. 10% of credit is new credit. Now here we mean that you go into the store and they say, hey, open this credit card and get 25% off. Well, you apply for it, you get it. That's new credit. As you see, 10% is not a whole lot. Also, new credit that falls here is your inquiries. So if you are applying for credit, and let's say you don't even get the credit, but you applied, here is where those inquiries fall. They fall under new credit, because that is a form of new credit that you're applying for. Too much of this can cause your score to drop. So be cautious about having all of these accounts that you're applying for opened at one time. Next slide. So here we have your 3 credit reporting agencies: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These are the 3 national agencies that house this information. Creditors report to them, and then they report it on that consumer file. Creditors pay to report your information, so keep in mind, all credit does not appear on your credit report. I also like to say that keep in mind, these 3 credit reporting agencies are 3 very distinctly different agencies. So their pointing ratios and their algorithms are different. What can impact the score is if one creditor has more information than the other. So what appears on one credit report does not necessarily appear on the other 2. So when you're going to buy something like a house, the lenders use your middle score because it is the less of 3 evils. Because what appears on one may not necessarily appear on the other 2. And that is totally legal. All creditors do not have to report to credit reporting agencies. Next slide. So remember to always get a free credit report throughout the year. There's the annual credit report that was developed for you to be able to do that. You get a free credit report there once a year. So you can go to annualcreditreport.com, or you can call that 1877 number, or you can go online and download the annual credit report request form and mail it to the address on the form. Those are the 3 ways you can do annual credit report. It was designed by the government for you to be able to look at your consumer credit report once a year, free of charge. You just need to pick the way that you want to do it and actually move forward. Next slide. So that's kind of the picture of how the website looks. Now, you don't have to do all 3 at one time. You can do one today, 3, 4, 5 months later, do another one, 3, 4, 5 months, do the next one. Or you can do all 3 at one time. It's just that if you did it today, you can't do it again on this particular site until a year from now. You can obtain a free credit report if you're currently unemployed and looking for work. So you can go to the 3 actual credit reporting agencies to let them know you're actively looking for work and you're unemployed. And if you're on some type of public assistance, you can get a free credit report through the 3 credit reporting agencies. Next slide. So tool 1, getting your credit reports and scores. As I stated, you can go to annual credit report and you can actually follow those steps. When you do it online and you answer the security questions, because there will be security questions that you should know. If you answer those questions correctly, then it will let you into the portal for you to be able to see the credit report. You can print it out then. Or if you set up this account, you can visit it within a 30-day period, but after 30 days, it's no longer accessible. So if you're unable to answer the questions, it's going to block you out and it's going to tell you you're going to need to mail off for the report. So that's when you're going to need to send in that request along with some information they're going to ask you for. So be sure you do this in a safe place. We don't advise you to use a computer that is, out in the public, because you are entering personal information into this system in order for you to be able to pull that report. Next slide. And here I just give you just a little snapshot of how long information is kept on your credit report, because I have people that tell me all the time, oh, well, things only stay on your credit report for such and such amount of time. So here's the truth to that. If it's open accounts in good standings, it's indefinitely because you're using them, it's continually revolving. That's what credit cards are, they're revolving. Now, if they're closed accounts and they're good standing, they normally stay on the report for about 10 years. And that's a good thing because that shows your past history. Now, late or missed payments, they tend to stay about 7 years along with collection accounts. But collection accounts, keep in mind, can take on a different life depending on your balance and what type of account it is. Because a collection account can move into an actual judgment or lawsuit against you, and then that takes on a whole different being. Then you will see bankruptcies like Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. Chapter 7 is complete liquidation, so it stays 10 years. And then the Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is reconstruction bankruptcy, that simply means you will pay a certain amount of your debt back that the trustees of the courts require you to pay. That stays 7 years because it's going to take you anywhere from a year to 5 years to pay the restitution of what the courts have already paid. That's why Chapter 13 stay for 7 years. You will see other things like unpaid tax liens, paid tax liens, and credit inquiries. Be sure that if you have any tax liens, you address them, because with tax liens, they can seize your bank accounts. They're going to get their money. So they're going to put this negative rating on your report, and also they will move further if you're continually not paying. So be sure you address any type of tax liens that may be out there. Next slide. So how to improve your score? Once again, don't close unused credit cards. Just find a way. I mean, now I'm not going to say don't do it. You can do it if you wish, especially if you're not about to buy anything, big where you're going to need that credit approval, because your credit will recover. So if you have 20 creditors and you're saying, hey, I want to downsize, I'm not about to buy anything, let me just kind of close some of these accounts. I would say close a few at a time, maybe 1 to 3, wait about 5 or 6 months, then close another few, because you want to start trying to recover from the hit of closing the account. Also, don't open up new credit cards to increase available credit, because I showed you length of credit, you're going to get dinged in that area because it's new. You're only getting 10% of your score. So don't use that as a mechanism to try to actually add to your credit availability, because it can work on the downturn instead of the positive. Next slide. Improving your credit scores will simply be pay your bills on time. Can't stress that enough. Pay on time. Get current and stay current. If you're behind on something, you can recover. It takes a while, but go ahead and talk to the creditor, find out what you can do, and then start doing it and work toward doing it. Don't open a lot of accounts, because once you do that, you have all these individuals pulling your credit report. It's going to reflect with those inquiries, and too many inquiries will bring your score down. If there are any mistakes on your credit report, you have the right to dispute them or to address them and get them corrected. And that is a simple process. It can be a lengthy process, but it is a process to get started once you receive your credit report. All credit reports will give you directions on how to have corrections made by doing either a credit dispute or doing a credit inquiry to that particular credit reporting agency to address whatever that trade line may be. Shop for within a focused period of time. So what we mean here is that if you're buying a home or a car, there's something called rate shopping, where you can actually, within a 14-day window, not be dinged for every inquiry that's done. But I always say, shop around, ask questions before you have lenders just pulling your credit report. Keep balances low on revolving credit. That's your credit cards. Try to maintain lower than 30% of utilization on your credit limits. That's going to help you to be able to stay in a good rating and not have all of your income going toward paying those debts. Pay off debt. It's great if you're using credit and paying it off. It is still showing that you're using it. So there's nothing negative in that. Just be sure that you're paying on time. And be sure to check your credit report. That's the only way you're going to know if creditors are reporting correctly. Especially in this time right now, there are some things that are not going to be reported as late if you are late because of the pandemic we're in. But you have to talk to your creditor. You have to know what those debts are and really speak to them nicely and have them to really look at maybe what they're reporting. Something is reported correctly during this month in 2 months that we've been in. Next slide. And here is my contact information. As stated, my name is Phoebe Brown, and I'm the Financial Inclusion Officer at Union. There's my email. That is the office number, but because I'm working remotely, the best way to reach me is through my email. So if there's anything that you may not want to ask out right here and you want to ask me, on the side, or even ask Bigby because he can possibly answer some of your questions, feel free to, because we're here to help empower you to be the best you that you can be. Next slide. Which I believe is our question period. So if you have any questions, I think we're ready for those, right, Bigby?
Yes, we are. Thank you very much for that presentation, as always. It was great. I'm very sad that this is the last one in your series. We do have a couple of questions here. Just a reminder, this presentation and a recording of the video from the session will be available on our website within 24 hours. So if you were a little bit late to get on, you'll be able to watch the whole thing on our website. So I've got a question here. Is the number of accounts and credit cards on your report, or can it increase your score or lower your impact? So I think that question is saying that does the number of accounts and credit cards on your report increase your score?
Not necessarily the number. It is the types of credit. The score and scoring systems like you to have a mix of credit. So sometimes you may pull your credit report and it may say that you need loans or you need this or you need that. The number of credit cards, no, because you can actually have too many. You do decide to make big ticket items and it can affect you negatively, because what lenders can do, they can max you out on your debt to see if you can handle the repayment of a loan. What we teach is that if you have two products, one that you kind of keep, that you're using regularly, another one for emergencies, but you keep it active, that should be good, because you don't want to over yourself by having too much credit. So too much credit can impact the score in a negative way.
Thanks, Phoebe. I got another question here. Is Credit Karma a good source to get your report?
Well, we in the financial industry, we don't care for Credit Karma too much, because Credit Karma only gives you, the retail fancy stuff. They don't give you the meat and potatoes. Also, Credit Karma, the Credit Karma, it doesn't use the FICO score. Once again, it is the Vantage score. So sometimes the score can be represented very differently when you pull FICO. FICO can be much lower than the Credit Karma report. Sometimes it's higher. So we like you to pull an actual hard report from Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion, or through annual credit report. Now, Credit Karma is good to look at and kind of get an idea of what's going on, but a lot of times it doesn't have as much as you really need in order to clean yourself up and get you where you really need to do. So it's a tool, but I wouldn't rely solely on just that tool. I would do the other report, annual credit report, to look at them directly through the agencies.
Thanks, Phoebe.
You're welcome.
Another question here. Do you recommend consolidating your debt or trying to take out a loan to help credit?
It depends on the person's situation, because having been in the industry for a long time, I can look at a report and I can tell you when you did a consolidation loan. So it just simply meant you out debt from here and moved it all into one basket. And there's that old saying, you may not want to put all your eggs in one basket. And you really have to ask yourself, okay, why am I consolidating? What I've noticed working in the industry, when individuals consolidate all their debt into a loan to try to pay it off, the mistake they make is they don't close the debt that they've just consolidated. And they go right back and they use the cards, they run them up again. Now you have a consolidation loan, plus now you have this debt that you've run up again, and now it puts you kind of in a more negative situation than you were before. So it really depends on the individual and their reasoning and how they move forward with the debt consolidation. Because if your credit cards are kind of negative, it might even be difficult for you to get a loan with a good interest rate. So it really depends. That's a broad question. It doesn't work well for everyone, but some individuals it could work well for.
Great, thanks, Phoebe. Question from me. If you have multiple credit cards and most of them have no balance on them, but you have a very high utilization on one card, is that going to negatively affect your score, or if is it the overall balance of all the cards that's considered?
Well, it depends on what that high utilization is, because remember, 35 and 30% are of the score are your major impactors. So your balance is going to impact you. So when they look at the report, if you have all these other credit cards that are not being used, but you have this one that has a very high balance, you don't have much utilization room left because you're too close to the ceiling, it can be looked at as negatively. So it could impact the score. It may not be a great impact to where you're falling at 600 or 500, but if you're going to try to buy any big ticket items, it can be looked at negatively in that area because you have this one product where more of your income is going to repay the debt. So you got to watch that. So it can, but it's not a hard no either. It will have some impact, but it won't have a great negative impact. Does that make sense? You're going to be somewhere right in the middle because of the amount that you owe on that one product.
Okay, thanks. If does anybody have any more written questions? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Yeah, just to say a huge thank you, Phoebe, for your time and your experience and knowledge for these sessions. The feedback's been great. I love them, and I'm looking forward to having you as part of future webinars, both for for flight and other things. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. Again, if you want to see the full video, go on our website, or if you want to learn about future webinars that are going to be done by us, then please go to Facebook as well and like us. On Thursday at 4 p.m., we're going to have Tracy Texter from Home Bank. She's going to be talking about the pathway to home ownership, and we kind of touched on that a little bit in today's session, but it's going to be doing a deep dive in the steps that you need to take in order to be ready to buy a home in the safest and most cost-efficient way possible. So please join us for that on Thursday. Look forward to seeing you all there. And a huge thank you again to Phoebe.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to whatever's next.
Well, I'll be seeing you on Friday, I think, for budgeting.
Yes,
all right.
You will.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.